Werewolf by Night is the newest addition to the game, and he's had a pretty mixed start to his debut in the contest, and I am on the side of that he is a good addition to this game. So here is my collective thoughts on this character after testing him for a little bit, and all gameplay is based off of a 565 5-star Ascended champion, so pretty much a 6-star rank 3 champion. And Werewolf by Night, if you can't tell already, is a priority defender. He was made for defense, but he's also a pretty strong burst attacker. Now, with being a defender, his kit isn't really made for the offensive side of things, so he's not really a utility powerhouse at all pretty much, and he's more focused on the damage output side of things. So his utility is very light, but it still does have some nice things. For example, he is shield block immune, he is kind of immune to poison as well, he has minus 95% duration on them, which is pretty good. He additionally nullifies precision and regeneration buffs, which is really niche, but I mean, it's something I guess. But also the most important thing, his DPS focus is rupture, so he is a pretty good damage dealer because of the fact that his damage form is really rare, and also the damage numbers are pretty dang good as well. But this champion isn't perfect, and of course he has weaknesses. So what are those weaknesses? Well, physical resistance kind of just wipes him out completely because he's completely physical. Rupture is a physical debuff and it's a physical burst of damage, so try to avoid those scenarios. And additionally, he has pretty much no mystic tropes that are common on the attacking side of things. He doesn't have any power control, and his buff control is very limited as well. But that's honestly fine because what he doesn't have in the buff control or the power control, he has in just raw DPS and defensive value as well. And speaking of defensive value, what makes this guy a good defender? Well, the usual mystic stuff, to be honest. He has access to unstoppable and unblockable with the curse of lycanthropy. I hope I said that right. It's a long word, okay? And I don't know it too well, but I think it's called the curse of lycanthropy. And additionally, when he's awakened, his chilling howl also gives him an unstoppable or an unblockable, or both depending on his power level. Additionally, the chilling howl gives him a pretty good power gain, and being mystic, he benefits from mystic dispersion. So all these things combine to make him a pretty nice defender. Pair that with the regen and also his massive health pool at base, and you have a pretty good defender. Is he Sasquatch level? Probably not, but is he close to him? Honestly, maybe. He has a very high health pool, which is already Sasquatch-esque, and given that he has unstoppable, unblockable, and regen, I get pretty similar vibes. And additionally, Werewolf by Night can inflict a rupture through block, which is an advantage to his defensive prowess. I think it makes him even better than some champions on defense because that will definitely do a number on your attackers. So pair that with his other abilities as well, and you have a pretty solid defender that should be a very good addition to your roster. So now some gameplay of Werewolf by Night. So first of all, that health pool is pretty massive. 46,000 for a 5-star Ascended champion is pretty good. So he is very safe to play. So what you want to do is you want to build your charges up, right? And he gains a charge whenever he goes over a bar of power or whenever he activates a chilling howl, and the charges are doubled if you have a rupture on the opponent. So keep that in mind. You want to do your first howl after the opponent is ruptured to get that bonus extra charge, and at that point the opponent's ruptured for pretty much the entire fight anyway. So now you want to activate your SP2 once you have 10 charges and you enter the curse of lycanthropy, because during this curse you get increased rupture potency and ability accuracy, so it's a very good thing to have while you drop the SP2, which gives you a lot of ruptures and extra burst damage. So here I dropped the SP1, and now the fight is wrapped up, and that was a pretty good showing of his damage potential. That was 200,000 health in about 49 seconds for a rank 3 6-star pretty much. That is pretty dang solid here. And now, quick disclaimer. Werewolf by Night is currently bugged, and he does not nullify regeneration, though he should. This is not like proper gameplay because of the bug that's currently happening, but still is a good showing of how he works against buffs. So first off, just the same rotation as usual, dropping the SP1, building up the charges by howling or just going over bar power, and then rinse and repeating that. However, there is now an extra bonus here because whenever a buff expires, we get a ton of extra power thanks to Mystic Dispersion. Now, this means that we get a lot of extra SP2s, which is massive, and additionally, Werewolf by Night's SP2 does increase burst damage per buff on the opponent up to 7. So whenever there is a ton of buffs, he gets a massive benefit. And this is the result, man. He is just shredding this fight, and it's going so well. We just gain a ton of power, and she just feeds the buffs for us, and we can just spam the SP2 and do fantastic rupture damage. So we drop it again, and yeah, she is just going down so fast. It is just amazing, man. I love playing this guy against buff heavy matchups because he just shines here so well. And then one last SP2 gets the job done. And that was about a minute and 6 seconds for like 500,000 health. That is fantastic for a champion who's supposed to be a defender mainly. And now we have this safeguard lane. Well, it's the rage lane, right? But basically is safeguard. And he's good for this because his damage output isn't based off of yellow numbers. It is just purely red numbers. And additionally, Wolverine has buffs, so that means we're just going to be eating so good, man. Like, against buffs, this man feels like a completely different character. While he's a great DPS without buffs, with buffs, he can just use that SP2 so much more often and just get so much extra burst damage as well. So it's a pretty big difference overall. And I like that about him because he doesn't have buff control, which is a bit annoying, but he also benefits from it in a different way, so it does kind of balance out a bit. Of course, having buff control is a bit better usually, but against champions that have buffs that aren't too important, having the extra benefit is honestly better sometimes, so it does balance out for sure. And yeah, man, he's doing super good here. The Mystic Dispersion is just really helping us in this matchup, and he is not hitting the damage cap either, which is also amazing. He is just doing his job very well. And the aggression that he has is just so fun. This man is like hyper aggressive, and that's one of my favorite things about him because I love hyper aggressive characters. Lady Deathstrike, Mole Man, Silk, all super aggressive champions, and this dude is probably one of the most aggressive characters in the game flat out, which is fitting because he is a werewolf who is known to be super aggressive. Now for this final fight, we have a Civil Warrior, and this is a great showing of how he benefits from buffs that aren't really too punishing. For example, armor ups usually have minimal effect on the fight, besides the fact that they help reduce the damage output taken from the defender. However, Werewolf doesn't care because he has access to physical burst damage, which helps bypass armor. So that's always a good benefit too, just having a good damage form to bypass things like armor ups or safeguard or just any damage cap as well. Just a really good thing to have overall for a champion, and here he just shreds this fight because of all the buffs. He can just take advantage of them and just use that to get extra burst damage. And the damage here is of course like massively inflated because of the poison debuff from the Mystic Curse lane, but besides that, he still does very good here. And this fight's almost done. He just maintains his curse mode really well because it pauses on basic hits and during special attacks, I believe. So you just have it up for a very long time, and it's really hard to lose it. And once you do lose it, it's very easy to get again, especially versus buff heavy opponents. But yeah, that fight was very good as well. And Werewolf by Night is just a pretty solid champion. Of course, he is defensive based, but also a pretty strong burst attacker overall that benefits a ton against buffs, as a Mystic character should. He's also very fun to play. He is very aggressive, which is one of my favorite types of champions to play. And last but not least, he is a werewolf, which is, you know, the coolest thing ever, man. This is a literal werewolf. Never seen in the game before. First time ever playing a werewolf. Feels pretty good, man. I really do like that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Werewolf by Night. Like I said, I think he is a great addition to this game. And yeah, that's about it for me.